First of all, I just want to welcome everybody to the SheShed. This is one of those nights where we are going live from the Boss Up podcast. So Wednesday nights will be live interviews, and we are actually going to be bringing in and talking to guests. So first, my name is Tina Bailey. I am a life strategy and business coach. I'm also a nonprofit strategy consultant. And the Boss Up podcast is all about helping women to show themselves as the boss and become the CEO of their own life. One of the things that if you've been following me for at any moment, you know that I am all about women empowerment. I'm deemed the woman for women. It is my desire and my hope, my prayer that I can help some woman to really walk into her purpose and live the life that she's called to live. And I'm a firm believer that the only way you can do that is by being strategic. And you have to be intentional in what you're doing. And that is some of what the Boss Up podcast and the Boss Up program that I have designed, it stems from. Boss Up is about women in leadership wanting to elevate where they are, develop a stronger core of who they are, and bring harmony into their life. And that's what we do. And I took it from Jay-Z, who says, "I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman." And I recoined it and I said, "I'm not a businesswoman. Woman, I am a business unapologetically. And I live my life accordingly. I make choices and decisions based off of what I would do in a business. And it has changed the entire trajectory of who I am. Many of you know my story, and those of you that don't, 7 years ago, I was laying on the floor, not knowing who I was, not knowing what I was outside of being a wife and a mother. I had nothing that I could say was my own, in my opinion. I was living to fulfill someone else's dreams. And I remember on that floor, I was actually asking someone to love me. And I made myself a promise. So they stepped over me. And I made myself and God a promise. When you get me up, mind you, I said, when you get me up, I will never get back on this floor again. And I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure no other woman gets on a floor like this again or feel this pain. I had no idea how I was going to do it. All I knew is that I had to do it. And over the last 7 years, I have been extremely honest with myself. And many of you know I've written books about it. But the main thing that I learned is I was wearing a mask. I was covering up who I was. And I had to acknowledge that mask. And I had to then ask God to remove the mask. And I realized that I was the one that was putting that mask on my face. No one else was putting it on there. And not only was I hiding myself from the world, I was hiding myself from myself. And I no longer wanted to do that. I wanted to be able to be proud of who I was. And so I started doing vision boards. And then I started a business so I could become self-sufficient. And then I went back to school. And then I got a job. Like all those things, it was like making and putting myself and making myself a priority. And was it easy? Absolutely not. But today I stand here or sit here, and I am, for the first time in my adult life, I can honestly say I'm happy. I am happy with me. I'm happy with what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing. And it's because I decided that I was going to become the CEO of my own life. And if you heard me say it, I'll say it again and again and again, because this is what I believe. You are the boss. You are the boss of your own life. You get to promote, demote, and terminate anything and anyone that is no longer serving you. So I want you to remember that as you go forth. If you don't remember nothing else from the night, but I'm sure you are, because I have a wonderful guest. But if you if you don't understand or know, um, I need you to know that you are the boss. And what boss means to me is that you are bold, that you are optimistic, that you are strategic, and that you're self reliant. And that leads me to my guest. My guest is Salina Miller. She is a believer in Christ, a wife, a mother, a visionary, a public speaker, an author, a trailblazer, a philanthropist, and the founder of Mother to Mother, a nonprofit. And y'all know how I feel about my nonprofits. And Salina is also the founder and CEO of Matters of the Heart, which is a Christian counseling service. And we're going to get into all of that. But what I can say about the person that I met is that she is, hold on, y'all, I'm messing up over here. She is um, a woman of God. Like, I'll just put it this way. I believe that God gives God breaths. And y'all know God breaths to me is when God blows you into a certain place, a certain area. There's a connection. There's a reason why he puts you in the path of someone else. Either you are to encourage them or they are to encourage you. And I'm just thankful for her being a vessel that has encouraged me to push and that is encouraging so many other people to push. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring Salina into the room and allow her to tell you a little bit more about her. And so I gave, hey, Salina, how are you? So I gave the high level of who you are. But my question that I would love to ask, because we are in a SheShed, and the SheShed is all about being real, transparent, removing that mask, and talking about the good, the ugly, all of it, to say what it is to be a woman in leadership. So having said that, what is the truth about Salina? What do we need to know about you?
The truth about Salina makes mistakes. Salina is not perfect. Salina is still discovering who she is. Salina is still working through imposter syndrome. Salina is still working through not feeling like she's not good enough to be in places and spaces like this. Salina is healing from trauma and past hurt and grief. And from time to time, I'll be tripping.
Girl, that part.
That
That
part.
part.
Like for real tripping. Like I could be like this and yes, and the Lord and this, and the next day I could be like, what is happening? Nothing is working right. Am I not equipped for what I'm supposed to do? And I could be second guessing and doubting myself.
Yes, yes. And it's so key that you said that, and I want to unpack that for a moment because I have heard so many people. Well, before we go any further, if you are on Facebook and you're chiming in, please, you need to make sure that you click the button so that we can see your comments so we can respond to them. Um, but you said something that was very key. You was talking about that imposter syndrome and that thing right there. Ooh, it's a bear. And I used to really, really struggle with it a lot until I heard a story, and it was actually Michelle Obama, and she was talking about how she was sitting in the kitchen at the White House. And she was like, they are going to figure out that we ain't got no business here and that we need to be, we should not be here. And they're
Yeah.
going to put us out. And she said, and she realized that that was the imposter syndrome
Yeah.
trying to taunt her. And my thing is, this is the woman that every woman in some capacity
Come on.
dreams to be, at the highest role that we as women would ever think of being. And here she is dealing with imposter syndrome. So it just shows me that it does not discriminate. It can affect
Yeah.
any and everybody. And Salina, I know we was talking earlier, and we were saying how, what is it that people need to know? And you said it, you mentioned it, that sometimes we have to be careful not to allow our fears
Yeah.
to hold us back, or allow what we have been told or what we're used to hold us back. And
Mhm.
and that sometimes those things are not going to go the way we want them to go. So I said a lot, but I want
No,
you
that's good.
to talk, to say, like, what would what is your advice for people, especially when you're dealing with matters of the heart? And y'all, we're going to explain what matters of the heart is. But what is it when you're dealing with matters of the heart and you're thinking about, the fears of your past, and how does it hold you back?
Well, I think from even our previous conversation when we met, I'm the root lady, right? I've coined I'm the root lady. So let's get to the root of your fear. And sometimes your fear is more than one thing that can be holding you back. It can be the fear of being rejected in a business world. Maybe you think that I'm ready to start this business. I know God has given it to me, but I'm afraid of being rejected if I put it out and nobody receives it, or I don't get any likes, or nobody purchases my product. Well, where does that rejection come from?
Mm,
Because it didn't just happen when you got this idea to start this business and now you're afraid. Let's go back and find out, where did rejection actually stem from?
yes.
And a lot of people don't know to do that. So I also like to help people to identify what their fears are. So even simple exercises as to writing out all of your fears. And then we go through. I mean, fear is the biggest reasons why we don't move forward in things. The
Mhm.
fear of the unknown,
Mhm.
the fear
Mhm.
of failure, the
Mhm.
fear of I'm not good enough to do this, the
Mhm.
fear of people are going to think I'm not qualified. I don't have
Mhm.
3 letters at the end of my name, or a master's degree, or
Mhm.
even a diploma.
Mhm.
But we cancel that because God qualifies you.
That's
He
right.
will qualify you for whatever assignment that He has given you. And so canceling out the lies of fear with the truth of what the Lord says is key to being, to me, is key to being able to walk forward in your God given assignment.
That's good. That's good. And I also, we also have to realize too that those fears, or two things, those fears are not just a negative thing. Sometimes it's the fear of success. You
That's
know,
it.
it
Mhm.
is the fear of doing something that no one else has done before.
Yep.
And what is it going to look like, because you never seen it, and so there is a fear. And
Mhm.
we also have to realize and understand that the truth of the matter is, if we're honest, all fear is not bad.
No.
It's not bad. Sometimes that fear is just it's a subtle or a discernment that you have been given, that this is not something you need to be doing, and you have to unpack it and ask yourself, am I fearful of this because it's not intended for me, or am I fearful because my trauma or past traumas are
Mhm.
holding me back?
Mhm.
And you have to be real. That's when you got to look in the mirror, take that mask off, and decide,
Mhm.
is this a real fear, or is this something I made up in my mind?
That's good. And here's the thing, like, has been showing me that there are people who are not even aware that they live in fear. So it's like, how do you even begin to work with or help those people who they've either lived in households or lifestyles where this is normal? So
Yes.
they don't see that they're wearing a mask. They don't
Mhm.
see that the reason why they don't push forward is out of fear. They just, this is what I've learned. This is what I've been taught. So even how do we begin to work with individuals who don't even have a clue that they're walking in fear? That they just think, oh, I'm not starting that business, man. That ain't for me, man. Our family don't do stuff like that, man. That's just, but why? Because
Mhm.
and again, like you say, it can be rooted in fear, but onto the other coin of where you say it's the fear of success. Again, I've talked to people who say, our family don't do this type of stuff. Like,
Mhm.
this is the life we live. We work at a good factory, a good paying job. We take care of our kids, and that's our life. But fear that, wow, if I hear God giving me this idea, this assignment, what would happen if it really like pans out?
Yes.
Like that it could be successful, that I
Mhm.
can make money and I can take care of my family. Like, yeah, you're right. It is the fear, because if you've never seen that before, if
Right.
you've never experienced that before, if ain't nobody in your family ever done that, or anybody you've been connected to, then yeah, that can be a fear for you. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
that's
It's funny, it's interesting that you said that, because two things is, the first thing is, yeah, sometimes you are living in a fear, but because it is so much of your norm that you don't see that it is a fear.
mhm,
It goes back to, there are things that hurt you, can physically be hurting on you, but because you have lived with that pain for so long, it no longer bothers you. You built up a um a tolerance to
Mm-hmm.
that. Or you're sitting there and you have instances to where, oh well, this is the way my mama always did, and so I, if I do it differently, that means I'm weak, or whatever the case may be. And so you have to cut, you sometimes you have to unlearn the stuff that you've learned so that you can move forward. And that is what I see a lot when it comes to women in leadership roles. We have been, we are constantly being compared to our
Mm-hmm.
male counterparts
Yeah.
and to each other. And Lord behold, if you are a Black woman in leadership roles, that's even another level of discrimination and hurt and pain and all those other things. And so we have to ask ourselves and realize that you deserve a seat at the table. Like,
Definitely.
it's, you are not put there haphazardly. If God gave you an image or a vision, he's also equipped you to move in that. But you have to get rid of your fear that it
Mm-hmm.
can, and you have to let go of sometimes, and we talked about this too, Salina, those childhood traumas that hold you back.
Yeah.
So talk about that, those childhood traumas and
Woo.
how they can get in the way.
So I can just speak. I can speak personally for myself because I've done a lot of work as it pertains to childhood trauma. Um, had I not one developed a relationship with the Lord and to understand who God is, the characteristics, and knowing that I'm an image bearer of God. Let's just talk about the fact of how we were created as image bearers of God, which means why can't I be a successful woman in business? I am like Christ. Hello, that's
Mhm,
huge. But a
mhm.
lot of people, as learning your identity and knowing who you are. When you know your identity, who you are and whose you are, it'll help, it will cancel out the fears of being able to walk in your purpose. But like we were talking about, it goes back to the beginning. A lot of these fears have grown from when we were young, from when we were kids. Whatever that fear can be, it could be that mommy and daddy may have never come to any of your events, never supported you in any of your activities, and so you never had that encouragement or that support to validate who you were and what you were doing. So then you're fearful when you get an adult to step out into a business or a ministry because there was nobody really lifting you up when you were a kid to say, you
Right.
know what, that's excellent. Or let me show you how you could do this a little better. Or let me show you how you can improve. So you're fearful because there was nobody like helping to cultivate who you were as a child.
Yeah, but let's think about that. Let's unpack that for a minute, because let's be
Mhm.
real. A lot of times they didn't have that kind of support, so they didn't know how to give
Mhm.
it. You
Yep.
can't give what you don't have.
Right.
And
That's
so,
absolutely
we can sit and we can say, oh, well, this person didn't do this or that, but you can't get something, like they say, you can't get blood out
true.
of a
Mhm.
turnip, right?
Yep.
And so you have to ask yourself, do I continue to blame them for not showing up for me, or do I
Right.
decide that I'm going to show up for myself? And that is what, bossing up is about, showing up for
Mhm.
you, because you cannot depend on someone else for your happiness or for
Definitely.
your success. You have to work through the process and make it happen yourself.
That's
And
it.
so, I say that all the time. There's a scripture said, I think it was like, I don't remember the town, the place. So it's like, can anything good come out of wherever it was? I don't
Yes.
know. And so I remember, I was, when I wrote my first book, I was, about to turn 40 when it was released.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until I released my second book, and that was like, years later, that the
Mhm.
first time I heard my mom say, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
And it's not that I knew she wasn't. I knew she was. She supported everything I did, but I never heard those words come out of her mouth. And I feel it was because she never felt she had to. And
Yep.
sometimes we can't get what we want because we put up this facade as if everything is
It's
okay
okay.
and that we don't need the help. And
Mhm.
that, to me, is one of the challenges that we as women have, is asking for that help and that validation. And
Mhm.
maybe it's because someone at some point told us or didn't give us the response that we wanted or
that
we
we were
needed.
looking for. And
Yep.
that's good because, and I agree with you 100%. As you get to this point and as you get to an adult, there is a decision that you need to make. It is a decision on whether you're going to continue to stay stuck or whether you are going to say, you know what, for instance, for my own story, I've seen how my family lifestyle was. But even as a young teenager, I was like, man, I'm not going to raise my kids like this. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. But the reason why is because I saw other ways to do it. I was exposed to other ways of how there could be something better or greater. So I agree with
Mhm.
you definitely that we can't stay stuck in that. But in order to not go back through a cycle, we have to understand it. And so that's why it's important to go through the childhood. And even when I work with clients, when we identify the root, and then we talk about the parent and then the grandparent, we find out that it's a generational thing, which then helps us even more to be able to cut the head off,
Mhm.
because then
Mhm.
it can help to understand, wow, like you said, this has been a part of my family with my mother and my grandmother. So it wasn't that your parents didn't want to be there for you,
Yeah.
they just didn't know what that looked like because they parents didn't do it and they parents didn't do it. But at some point in your life, there comes a point where you have to say, look, I'm not going to keep operating out of fear. I know that the Lord has given me an assignment. I believe and I know that God is going to give me all the resources, tools, and everything that I need to be able to steward it. So, what you going to do to start taking that mask off and do the work and boss up?
That's right. That's right. You know, we wake up every morning with a choice. Okay? Every morning we wake up with a choice. But having a choice is not enough. You have to make a decision. You
Mm-hmm,
have to, because that's a whole different level. I can get up in the morning and I
mm-hmm,
can say, I'm going to make a choice to be happy. But
mm-hmm,
then where it gets deeper is you have to make a decision. When that person cuts you off on the road or when that person at work don't say the way you want, you made a decision. So stick
mm-hmm,
to your decision or you will fall back into those choices and then you in a mess. And so we have to be very careful with the things that we are doing and how we are allowing certain things to show up in our lives. It's not, like I say all the time, it's not about what someone else thinks of you. It's what you think of yourself. If you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you won't.
you
You'll
won't.
find every excuse not to. So
I,
when you're in that leadership role, we have to ask ourselves,
mm-hmm,
or and realize, ladies, when I'm talking about being in a leadership role, I'm not just talking about owning your own business or working in corporate America. A leadership role in your own life. You are a leader. You get to make executive decisions. My mother used to say, if you see me talking to myself, don't worry about it. I'm having an intelligent conversation. Like sometimes you got to talk to yourself. And, someone would say, if you talk to yourself, you're crazy. And I'm going to tell you, if you ain't talking to yourself, you crazy, because I have talked myself out of a lot of
a
stuff
lot of
that
stuff.
that if I hadn't talked to myself, it's like I said to myself, and self said, huh? No, I'm not crazy. I realize and I understand that I need to take a step back sometimes and look at the situation.
Yeah.
And you was talking about, just, like you said, digging into that root. Where is it coming from?
Mm-hmm,
Where is that pain coming from? What is it? We make a lot of decisions in life because it's what we have seen. I don't know if you heard of the story. The lady was saying, the child asked the mother, "Ma, why do you cut the turkey and put it in, and cook it two different times?" And she
mm-hmm,
said, "I don't know. My mama always do it. Go ask grandma." So she went and asked the grandma. And said, "Grandma, why do we cut the turkey in half and cook it at two different times?" The grandma said, "I don't know. My mama always did it. Go ask your great grand." Went and talked to great grand said, "It's because I never had a pot big enough to put the whole turkey in."
mm-hmm.
So how many things are you doing right now in life because that's all you have ever seen?
Yep.
How many times have you gotten to that point to where you're about to have your breakthrough, but you stop because you never seen that breakthrough in
Ooh,
anybody else's life?
come on.
So you
That's
have to
good.
stop and ask yourself, am I holding me back? And I think that when we dig into matters of the heart and be
Mm-hmm,
honest with ourselves, we will realize Your only hindrance is you.
Mhm. That's good. Something else I wanted to go back to is we were talking about comparison. Comparison can also be another dream killer. And the reason being is that we're looking at every other woman who may even be in a similar like line of work that you're in, or maybe they're a business coach, or maybe they're a counselor, and you're looking at their followers and their business, and it just looks like this thing. And so you get fearful, and because you're comparing your business or what you're starting to theirs. And one thing that God helped me so much in comparison is that He said, y'all may have a similar type of business, but it's only one you.
That's right.
And that's what sets you apart from anybody else that's even in the same field, line of work, ministry, household manager of the family and kids, is that there is nobody like you. And there's a
Mhm.
specific assignment that is given to you. There, you are the only person who can do it that way. He created it so that you're the only person to do it that way. And so remember that as you begin to try to compare what it is that you may be called to do versus somebody else, is that can't nobody do it like you.
Yep. Yep. That's good. Like, and we have to realize and understand when he created you, he broke the template so nobody else would be like you. And
Mm-mm.
another key thing that you said was, when we're sitting and we're thinking about, what it appears that
Mm-hmm.
someone has. Because you have to remember, I always say, look at it like this. When you get ready to post a picture on Facebook, I guarantee you never post the first one that you took because you find some flaw in it. So
Mm-hmm.
imagine if you're doing that, what they're doing. Most time people don't post their failures. They post their successes. And so
Yep.
you have an opportunity to know your failures and your successes, yet you're comparing all of that to just their successes.
Yep.
And remember that failure is a part of the process,
It
because if
is.
everything went according to the way you wanted, you would not push yourself harder to make it happen.
That's
You would
good.
not open an umbrella if you never saw the rain. In fact, you wouldn't even have one. So
Mm-hmm.
you need those challenges in order to grow into the person that you are designed to be.
Yep.
The other
That's what I
thing
was
too,
about to
when you
say too.
said, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was about to say the same thing. Failure is also, I use it as a growth place. When you fail at something, it gives you the opportunity to grow. So God kind of shows you an area and say, "Hey, this is what we need to work on. We need to revamp this." And in the midst of that adversity, you grow. You learn a little more about yourself. You learn what not to do and what to do. So it's also actually a point of where you can grow. So
Absolutely.
failure is let's say failure is necessary.
Absolutely.
Failure is
And but
necessary.
let's can we go back a step? Is
Hmm.
there really a such thing as failure? Because here's the thing. You may not have succeeded in what you was doing, but you learned of what would
Hmm.
not work so that you don't do it again.
That's it. That
So
is.
is it really a reality? Like, there's no, in my opinion,
Hmm.
it's like a nose. I got one. There is no failure. Failure is just an opportunity to learn another way. It's
Hmm.
just another, like you said, a growing step. It's a step
Hmm.
to get you closer to where you are. The
Yep.
other thing that I, think about when I think of failure, I think about rejection. So often I know my clients will come to me and say, I just felt rejected, in that situation, whatever it was. And I have to tell them often that rejection is protection. There was something there that you didn't need to be a part of. And remember this, no just
Mhm.
means next opportunity. There's
Come on.
another and better opportunity coming your way. You just have to believe. You have to believe it with everything you have. But
So good.
unfortunately, we're comparing ourselves to other people, like you said.
And to go back to what you just said about the rejection piece, is sometimes God will allow people and situations to reject you as a way to keeping you out of the line of fire.
Mhm.
So it can also be a protection. But again, it's hard for people to see that when you're blinded by pain and trauma.
That's true.
So, in
That's
order to do the work to see it through that perspective or to see it through that lens, we got to clear out some stuff first, because
Mhm.
sometimes rejection is God protecting you.
That's right. That's right.
Even
That's
that
right.
abandonment that you may have felt is also could be a way that God protected you. He kept you in a secret place where he moved
Mm,
everybody and everything out of the way because he wanted to keep you in this cocoon so that you bloom into this beautiful butterfly to go off into wherever he sends you.
that's
But
good.
people
That's
have a
good.
hard time seeing that.
Yeah, because we have become a community of a microwave community. We want it right now. We don't want to wait. We don't want to go through the process.
Mhm.
We want, if you say that you want to be a $1 million business owner, you want it right this moment. And
Mhm.
then you're sitting there trying to figure out why isn't this not happening for me? But
Yep.
have you put in the work? The Bible says faith without works is dead.
It's
You can't
it.
believe something is going to happen, but not put the work in to get it. And so oftentimes we're sitting there and God has showed us the door, but we sitting there waiting for him to open it. No, you have to open the
You have
door
to
and
do
walk
it.
in.
Come on.
But what we'll tend to do is, well, I'm just waiting on God. You are never waiting on God. God is waiting on
God
you.
is waiting on you. He's already opened the door. He opened the door a long time ago. He's already showed you what you were supposed to do. But we waiting on the 50 million signs to come in. Well, I just need another sign from the Lord. No, the Lord had already told you what your assignment was. He had already prepared you for your assignment. He waiting on you. He ain't gonna
Mhm.
keep giving you too many more signs and wonders. Now he didn't already told you what you're supposed to do. Going back to the microwave, I have young adult grandkids and a young adult son. And they're in this generation of electronics, YouTube, and everybody that they see that's got quick money and videos all making millions and millions. They think that this stuff just happens overnight
Mhm.
because they don't see the process. They
Mhm.
don't see the process that these people have had to do and go through, and the sacrifices they made, and the blood, sweat, and tears. All they see is that they YouTubers with millions of followers that's making money, and so that's what they want to get to. But
Mhm.
what I try to explain to them is, y'all, there are steps to this. All you're seeing is like a finished product for whatever
Mhm.
this is.
Mhm.
But he
Mhm.
didn't just get to millions and millions of followers overnight. And it's the same for us, even in our journey of healing. There's a process. We never arrive
That's right.
because we live in a world where there's always something. We are of flesh, so we're always going to have to go through trials and tribulations, but it's a process. And so the key is trusting God in what He's given you as an assignment. And you got to boss up. Look, we can't be walking around here as wimpy Christians. I'm
That's right.
sorry.
That's right. That's
I'm
right.
sorry. We have the authority and the power of the Almighty to do what He has called us to do. We are made in His image, and you need to walk heavy in whatever it is that He has given you.
That's right. That's right.
And wait. You're going to have to wait some time. I'm sorry, y'all. It just don't happen overnight. You're going to
That's
have
right.
to wait, and you're
That's
going to have
right.
to do the work.
That's right. I love the part where you said you have to walk heavy. Most women, we want to tiptoe around stuff. No, you need to let it be known who you are. You need to show who you are and whose you are. And we won't go too deep into this, but we have so many that say, well, I don't want to be, walking in my masculinity, and I want to be feminine. There's a little bit of both of them, and all in everybody. And so you have to ask yourself, what do you need to be at the moment? I can be very feminine and I can be very masculine. That boss in me is very masculine, takes control. But there's also that side of me that remembers that I am God's princess and I can be very, very girly. And it's okay. You just have to know when it's appropriate and when it works for you. And don't allow anyone to discourage you from being who you are.
But here's another thing. Here's what I want to add to that is walking heavy doesn't have to necessarily mean man or woman. Walking heavy means your authority.
Yeah,
God gives us an authority. And with that authority, you walk heavy because
yeah,
you know I am His. I have everything I need to run this business, this ministry, to nurture my family and to support my husband because of the Holy Spirit and God that's within me. I can walk upright and with a level of confidence because of that authority. And that's what you walk heavy in. It's the assurance of
yeah.
who you are. But here's the thing, Tina, you have to know who you are
That
and
part,
whose you are.
that part,
Because
that
we
part.
feminine all day, but I walk with authority in
Yeah,
what God has given me. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
that's good stuff because you're right. Like, a lot of times we don't know who we are because we don't know ourselves as a person. We know ourselves by the titles that we have or the hats that
yes,
we wear, but we don't know ourselves as a person in our own right.
yep,
Before you was a mom, before you was a wife, before you was an employee, before you was any of those, you were God's princess. And you need to
that's it.
realize and understand that you was a woman. And so we need to realize, okay, what does that woman want? What does that woman need? Who is she? And where
That's
is she coming from? So, it's very important and very key that we do dig deeper into who we are and get to the root of why we do the things we do and why we are sabotaging ourselves.
yeah,
And I think that we've covered, a lot of information and help the women to that's looking, listening to really hear and realize you have a choice, but you also have to make a decision. And
yeah,
you have to decide, am I going to allow what happened in my childhood to keep hindering me? Or am
yeah.
I going to let it fuel me to be the best version of me? And so I
Hmm.
love how that. So, one of the things that I do want to make sure that we talk about is your your business. So can you tell the people exactly what you do and who you are and who your target audience is?
Okay, so I have the honor and pleasure of one being a nonprofit owner of Mother to Mother. Now, I am a mom to a 18-year-old son that's impacted by autism, and then I'm also a guardian grandmother to a 14-year-old that's also impacted by autism. So I started Mother to Mother back in 2017, and we are a community of parents that support one another, provide resources, you name it. It's a community. So when you think about community, that's what we are for those families. But as of August of 2022, God had kind of shifted me to grow support in another more personalized one-to-one. And so Matters of the Heart Christian Counseling Service was birthed in August. And I have the pleasure and had the pleasure to work with 20 women in the last 6 or 7 months, helping them to get to the root of their fears, their shame, their guilt, their rejection, abandonment, so that they can walk in their assignment, so they can be the wife that God has called them to be the mother that they've been called to be without the film and the fog of their past. And
Yeah.
so, I service the women in our group. So I have autism moms as clients, as well as just women. God has given me a heart for women,
Yeah.
and in this season. So that's
Yeah.
what I do.
I love it. I love, like, when I was visiting, and talking with you about what you do, it was just amazing to me because we have to realize there's a billion people in the world, but we are only assigned to a certain
Mm,
population and a certain group. And I
mhm.
think that if we would realize that and stay in our lanes, we would get so much more accomplished
Yes.
and collaborate with people. Because that's one of the things I want to make sure that I stress, especially on this platform, is collaboration is key.
Yep.
You're not called to help everyone. You are called to help a certain group, and God will breed those individuals to help you in areas that you're not called into. And you have to make sure that you realize and you understand that because that's how you're going to get further.
Yep.
Leadership is all about building and it's
Mhm.
building other people. It's not about telling other people what to do or anything. It's leading them. You're only as good of a leader according to the followers you have.
Yep.
So realize that. Because if you don't have people following you, you ain't leading nothing.
Mhm.
And so who are you leading? Who has God put you in charge of? And so I just thank you for that.
That's
So of
good.
course, as always, we want to ask those, questions that everybody is wanting to know. So my question is for you. The first question is, what would you consider? So we talked about being a boss, and for everybody that knows, to me, boss is a bold, optimistic, strategic, and self-reliant. But Salina, what is it to you to be a boss?
Hmm. I was thinking about that when you asked me earlier, and I've never struggled with answering the question like that. I guess because the way I look at what God has allowed me to steward. So if I would say being a boss, it would be the level in which I steward the things that he gives me.
Mm.
That is where I would consider if I would describe myself as a boss. It's the way in which I steward what he entrusts me with.
Oh
And,
man, that's good.
and with the level of um yeah, I'll leave it there. So it's about how I steward what he gives me, what he allows me,
That's
entrust me.
good. I mean, the reason I say reason that kind of hit me, I always say in my shana now, is because that word stewardship. We have missed what that is. And stewardship is what you're serving, what you are taking care of, what you are building and growing. So what is it that you are a boss over? And the only thing we have to realize and understand, we can control absolutely nothing on this earth. Absolutely nothing. We are not in control of anything. Okay. But what you can do is you can steward the life that God gave you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that and by doing that, you will build and become what He has intended for you to
That's
be.
it. That's
So
it.
the second question that I want to ask is, if you could go back and you could tell the 20-year-old Salina anything, what would you tell her?
Ooh, when I think about my 20s, I would tell her that you are good enough. You are good enough. You are worthy of love. You are
Mm,
worthy of a good life.
mm,
You are good enough for everything that God gives you. So that was something I've always really struggled with, even in my 20s, was just feeling like I wasn't good enough for anything, and I acted as though I wasn't. So
mm. I love it. So I'm sure you can see at this point, I now strolling across the bottom of the page is Salina's Facebook page, and it is Matters of the Heart, and it is her Christian counseling group, as well as she has a special offer for those that are listening in on the podcast. If you go to her website, you will see what services she offer. And as you said, a lot of it is digging into the root of
yes.
why you are doing the things that you're doing, why you're sabotaging yourself, why you're
Hmm.
not moving forward. And a lot of times it's because of something that's rooted down inside of you. She does take a Christian um, stance on it. And, so understand that that's what you're going to get, you know, and be ready to change that part of you so that you can see yourself as a boss. Because until you can see yourself outside of your dysfunction, you
Yeah.
will never see yourself in a victory or a victorious state. I'm going to say that again. Until you can
Hmm.
see yourself outside of dysfunction, you can never see yourself as victorious.
That's good. And before we go, I just like to say that in our sessions, I'm very relatable. I understand the importance of being relatable. I share a lot of my own personal testimony to help you to see how God has transformed my entire life and what that looks like. At the same time, some people may be watching or listening and be like, well, I don't know. I don't know if I need a counselor. One thing I tell people is I like to start with the mouth. How do you talk to people? How do you talk to people? Some people are like, would love to argue, would like to cut you down, very confrontational in a negative way. That's not considered normal. So look at the things that you may do that you know in your heart is not right, but you do that behavior or that thing anyway. But you
Mhm.
want to stop, but you don't know how. That's what I like to help people discover. That behavior, that thing, the way you talk, however, and you know that it's not right, but you don't know how to stop. And we work together to identify, well, why do you argue all the time? Usually, a lot of the times is because you were never heard when you were a child.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
you overtalk, you argue, you're always confrontational because either when you were younger, teenager, whatever, People didn't listen. People didn't hear you. They didn't listen to you.
That's good. That's real good. It's real good. I love that. And you are so correct. Like, yeah, yeah, we'll go into that another time, probably one on one. But but again, like I said, if you would like to connect to Salina, please, please, please reach out to her on Facebook. It is the Heart Matter. And I'm just excited. I am thankful. I'm thankful for this God breath that He connected you and I. And I'm sure we will be doing a lot of things together because we just had that kind of,
We
vibe.
did. The first day, we was just like back and forth. So I was like, oh
Yeah,
yeah, I believe in divine connections and I believe
absolutely.
in collaboration, like you said. And it's important that women like ourselves stay connected and continue to uplift and build the kingdom. And you can't do that by yourself.
No,
It takes a community, it takes others to do that together.
exactly. Well, I just want to say to everyone that came in, thank you for showing up. Thank you for coming in and joining us. And remember this: if you don't take anything else from this whole session, you are the boss. You are the boss of your life. You just got to get rid of the fears and living in your dysfunction so that you can see yourself as victorious. You know, God did not cause you, He did not give you that fear. He never said it wouldn't happen, but it did not come from Him. And so you have to figure out where it's coming from. So I thank you again. Continue to be a part of the SheShed. We air every Wednesday, usually recording right here live, and then it is put onto the podcast and onto the YouTube channel. So I appreciate each and every one of you, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Y'all have an amazing week. Talk to you soon.